384 people have now recovered, with 5 active cases. In total, we have tested 76,969 people. We are aware of a situation developing with regard to a case identified on a Marine Atlantic vessel. We have been in contact with public health officials in Nova Scotia and with Marine Atlantic Occupational Health and Safety, and are coordinating a response. We will be contacting crew members to arrange testing, and out of an abundance of caution, we will be asking anyone who travelled on the MV Blue Patties between North Sydney and Port aux Basques on any sailing between December 29th and January 16th to call 811 to arrange for testing. We'd like to indicate that the risk is low for these people, but we are doing this out of an abundance of caution. It's a very welcome trend for me to report today with no new cases of COVID-19 and more vaccinations administered. Each day that this happens is a small victory in the fight against this virus. As of yesterday, the province had received 13,575 doses of vaccine, and 8,549 doses had been administered, and that's approximately 63%. 1,737 of these are second doses. So this means we're nearing 2,000 individuals in our province who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. As I mentioned last week, regional health authorities are working diligently to administer the vaccines to individuals in our Phase 1 priority groups. Before each shipment of vaccine has arrived in the province, the regional health authorities already have a plan in place for those who will receive those doses. Once the shipment arrives, it is immediately distributed to regional health authority depots and then communities where public health nurses and other personnel will deliver the inoculations. As I speak, vaccines are being administered in our long-term care homes and personal care homes across the province, as well as communities on the Labrador coast. We do anticipate a temporary delay in the shipment of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine in the next few weeks due to renovations taking place in their European manufacturing facility. The renovation will accommodate increased production of the vaccine, which is a positive step for everyone on a global scale. We anticipate a delay for 8 trays of vaccine, or about 7,800 doses. It will not reduce the overall amount of vaccine our province will receive. We will just be receiving it later than anticipated. As well, there is no change to the schedule of deliveries for the Moderna vaccine. Pfizer has provided information on the safe redistribution of vaccine from the central storage site. So now we have more flexibility, allowing us to focus on long-term care and personal care homes. This is welcome news, as the Pfizer vaccine will comprise the bulk of our supply for Q1. The distribution process for this vaccine is still more complicated than our normal processes, and RHAs have risen to the challenge. As we work our way through vaccinations in Phase 1, our focus will continue to be on those who are most at risk for severe illness from COVID. In Canada, individuals over the age of 80 comprise the largest portion of hospitalizations at 33%. Sadly, this age group also comprises the largest proportion of COVID-related deaths at 70%. These proportions progressively decrease as age decreases. What this evidence tells us is that the older individuals have a greater risk of complications due to COVID and must remain a priority. If we could give everyone in our province the vaccine today, we would, but we only have a limited supply for now. Therefore, we will base our decisions on evidence as we determine who is next in line. As more vaccine becomes available, the Department of Health and Community Services and the regional health authorities will notify the public as to the next category of individuals eligible for vaccination and how they can access a clinic. As a recap for those who may have just joined us, we have no new cases since yesterday's media advisory. The total number of cases in the province is 396. We are doing so well, and it is a credit to everyone in Newfoundland and Labrador. We cannot make the mistake of letting our guard down because of the low case counts or pandemic fatigue. We never know when or where COVID may be lurking, so keep up the good work and hold fast. Thank you. And I'll now turn it over to you, Leslie.
Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. For the benefit of our speaker, there are 5 reporters registered for today's call. The first round of question and answer session will give each reporter the opportunity to ask 1 question and 1 follow-up. Following this, there will be a final round where each reporter will have the opportunity to ask 1 final question. Our first questions are from Peter Jackson with The Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Peter.
Dr. Fitzgerald, your office, I'm assuming, was in touch with Central Health about this cold chain break. Can you tell us how and where the breakdown occurred?
So the cold chain break actually happened during the transport of the vaccine from the Gander Depot to Grand Falls. So during that time, the vaccine has to be held between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. And at one point, it went a little bit above that 8 degrees. For about, so we have a specialized temperature recorder that goes in each box, and it indicated that it was above that temperature for about 15 minutes. So that doesn't mean that there's been any damage to the vaccine. And certainly we know, and Pfizer has advised, that the vaccine is stable at room temperature for up to 6 hours. But out of an abundance of caution, of course, we wanted to make sure that we treated this as if it had been left at room temperature. So we wanted to administer that vaccine within that 6-hour period, which Central Health was able to do, and worked quite diligently to make sure that that happened without any wastage doses.
Okay, thank you. And what procedures are in place to prevent that from happening? I mean, have there been any protocols revisited in light of that event?
Yes, so absolutely. You know, Central looked at this and tried to determine what the reason for that cold chain break was. And to the best of my knowledge at this point, they have figured that out, and they have put safeguards in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
Our next questions are for Linda Swain with VOCM. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you provide us a few more details on the response to the case involving Marine Atlantic, and under what jurisdiction do any possible cases stemming from that be reported? Will they be reported through Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador?
So reporting of cases of COVID will fall to the province where the person resides, and that's sort of a regular rule for any attribution of infectious or communicable diseases. So even though the person may be in Nova Scotia for the full extent of their illness, if they are a usual resident of Newfoundland and Labrador, then the case will be attributed to Newfoundland and Labrador, even though it may not be an active case in our province. So we have, those protocols have been in place all along, so we do have a protocol for dealing with that.
What does the contact tracing look like there right now? Is it Nova Scotia that's taking the lead on it, or ourselves?
So contact tracing will be done by wherever the contacts are. So if the contacts are identified as being in Newfoundland, we'll be following up with those contacts here in Newfoundland. And if they're identified as being in Nova Scotia, they'll be followed up there. And the same goes for the testing of those contacts.
Thank you.
Our next questions are from Peter Cowan with CBC. Please go ahead.
Further to the questions there about the blue puttees, can you give us more information about the worker who tested positive? Was this someone who interacted with people on board the vessel? How high is the risk that people who might have just been traveling on board the ship may have been in contact with this person?
So I can't give any details about the case in particular due to privacy issues, obviously, but what I can say is that Marine Atlantic certainly has put a lot of protocols in place since the beginning of the pandemic to reduce the amount of interaction that their staff and their passengers will have. They've certainly got masking protocols and all of that as well, and they've reduced common spaces and so really reduce the risk of people intermingling on their vessels. So we think for most passengers the risk would be low, and anyone who traveled. Obviously, crew members are on those vessels for a 2-week period or more together, so there would be a slightly higher risk in some crew members, especially if there was close contact during the infectious period. The other thing we have to remember, of course, is that everybody has an infectious period, which is about 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms. So there's not necessarily somebody infectious for that whole period of time. But we are trying to, out of an abundance of caution, just trying to look back to make sure we're not missing any cases.
You mentioned that Central Health has identified and made changes in order to make sure a cold chain break doesn't happen. Are you able to give us some more details? What exactly was the cause, and what specific changes have they made?
So it's my understanding that it has to do with just the way that the shipping container was conditioned, and the temp tail, the temperature recording device that we use, were conditioned prior to being placed in the shipping, the temp tail being placed in the shipping container, and so that can sometimes result in a higher reading. But as I said, out of an abundance of caution, we felt it had to be treated as a cold chain break, and therefore we wanted the vaccine to be used within that 6-hour period. The vaccine was quite safe to be used and is still considered to be stable and effective.
Thanks.
Our next questions are from Jody Cook with NTV. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. A little bit of good news, I understand, on the flu, the confirmed cases of influenza. And as of January 19th, our recent numbers show that there have been no cases of the flu in this province whatsoever during our flu season, whereas last year, throughout the flu season, there was over 700 cases. What do you attribute that to, outside of maybe just proper hand washing?
Yeah, so I think most people are saying it's because of COVID precautions, right? So I think on the whole in the country, we've only had a little over 50 cases reported, and I think on average over the past 6 years, it's for this point in time in the flu season, I think it's somewhere around 14,000 cases that we usually see, or that are usually reported. So certainly we are seeing a big decrease. I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of the measures that are in place for COVID. Of course, all those things that cause the transmission of COVID also cause the transmission of flu. So, we're seeing that. But not only that, we're seeing that all around the world, right? So, it's not just the flu not spreading across Canada, it's the flu not spreading across the world. So I think that is the main reason that we're seeing this. And the fact that we've had more people vaccinated for flu this year than ever before. So that's really important as well. And it's
all
not
right.
too
and
late
then,
to get your flu shot. Sorry.
Thanks. And then just returning to the Marine Atlantic issue once again, I understand the time frame that's been put in there for passengers to consider calling 811 for testing is just a little bit over a 2-week stretch. We know that the staff member had worked for a 2-week time period. Why did public health decide to go with that particular time slot, which is just a little bit longer than what the natural incubation period would be anyway?
So it had to do with the period of time that the person worked, actually, which was a little bit more than 2 weeks.
Okay, and if I just sort of ask a quick follow to that, was the person symptomatic at any point during their work, or was it after they finished their entire shift schedule and went home that they became symptomatic?
So I really can't discuss the details of somebody's condition, but, public health in Nova Scotia is certainly working through all those details.
Thank you.
Our next questions are from Elizabeth Whitten with All Newfoundland Labrador. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Fitzgerald, I think this might be the first time you've held a briefing on your own, so I'm curious, with an election now on, how does that impact your role as Chief Medical Officer? Does it give you more or less freedom to make decisions?
So I actually did give some briefings in the very early stages of the pandemic alone. But yeah, you're right. For the most part, it has been at least two, if not three of us. So my role is the same as what it's always been. And, the Chief Medical Officer of Health is an appointed position, in the sense that, you have to, there's qualifications and people have to meet those qualifications, and they're appointed to that, and they're an independent and impartial position within government. So our decisions are made based on the public health evidence, based on best practice, based on epidemiology, and that was the same before an election was called, and it will remain that way during an election campaign.
Right on. And I was hoping you could clarify a comment you made earlier about the more flexibility given by Pfizer. I know when we first started getting the shipments in, we were, there was, sorry, there's some chatter in my office. Sorry, I'm curious. We were told that, you weren't allowed to move it out of St. John's. So can you clarify that?
Yeah, so Pfizer came out with some instruction as to how to be able to distribute it on from the central depot where it was, where the product was delivered when it came to the province. So, it gets delivered to one of our depots, the vaccine depots in the province. And so initially what was told was that it had to be administered from that site that it was received at, which is why the initial doses that we had here had to be given at the Health Science Centre. Shortly after that, the Pfizer came out with with some guidance as to how to move, if we had to move the vaccine, how to move it safely and make sure that, we had those safeguards in place. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility about how to do that now.
Thank you.
I will now go back through each reporter to see if you have one final question. Peter Jackson with the Telegram. Do you have a final question?
Yes, I do. We get constant questions from people, as I'm sure you do, that who want to know when, not only when they'll be vaccinated, but also how they'll know it's their turn to be vaccinated. When do we expect? When can we expect some kind of phase 2 and 3 broad stroke idea of who's getting vaccinated first and how they'll be told?
Yeah. So. That's a difficult question, really, to answer when we don't know exactly how much vaccine we're going to be getting, right? So a lot of what our priority groups are and who will get it depends on how much vaccine we get. So we're still waiting for some of that information, especially for quarter 2. In quarter 1, for the most part, the people that we're going to be giving the vaccine to, we'll be going to them and arranging appointments with healthcare workers with regard to people in long-term care and personal care homes. They won't have to worry about making appointments or anything like that. With regards to some people who are 80 and above or 85 and above, certainly we'll be making announcements when we're able to do that, and we will be providing that information about how people will be able to book their appointments when we release that information. So it will be well advertised and well known for sure.
Thank you.
Linda Swain with the OCM. Do you have a final question?
I do. Will we receive enough vaccine for every Newfoundlander and Labradorian? When do you anticipate that may happen?
So we anticipate we will be able to offer vaccine to everybody who wishes to have it certainly before the end of the year, likely by early to mid-fall. But of course, all of these things are fluid, and it depends on. We've just seen with the Pfizer-BioNTech product, that we've had some delays. So, but that, according to the information that we have now, that's what we expect.
Peter Cowan with CBC. Do you have a final question?
Yeah, question about restrictions. We certainly have much fewer restrictions than most provinces because our cases are much lower. But I've heard from a lot of people who are still frustrated about whether or not it's, restaurants that are still operating at reduced capacity or sports games that they can't go watch their kids play because of, restrictions there, for example. At what point might you look at easing some of those restrictions further, considering we're not seeing community spread. We were able to make it through the Christmas season without seeing a significant flare-up of cases, things like that.
Yeah, so thanks, Peter. You know, as we've said many times before, we don't make our decisions about our public health measures simply based on our case counts. We have to take a lot of other things into consideration, in addition to what's happening in the rest of the country and our risk for importation. We also have to look at public health capacity and our health system capacity as well. So we need to make sure that if we did have an outbreak somewhere, that we'd be able to respond to that outbreak in an expedient manner and be able to get it under control. And especially now in a situation where we're going to be giving out vaccine, and public health is heavily involved in that as well. We obviously need to make sure that we maintain our capacity as best as we can. So a lot of these limitations with regard to size and regard to how many people can be somewhere, be in one place at a time, those are there not just because of trying to increase physical distancing in the space, but also to look at it on the other end. If there was an outbreak in that area, what is a reasonable amount, what is a reasonable size of a gathering that we would be able to do that contact tracing in? And we know that the bigger the size of the gathering, the greater the chance of spread, but also, the more contact tracing there will be to do. So we're trying to maintain a balance here between, making sure that people have some freedoms to be able to get back to some level of normal life, but also that we're maintaining a capacity, and we feel that we've struck that balance right now. So I think things will stay the same. And we've seen how quickly things can get out of hand. And certainly, there have been cases where we see outbreaks at hockey games or hockey tournaments, for example, that have spread through many, many people, hundreds of cases by the time it was all done. We've seen that here in our own personal experience early in the pandemic. So, it doesn't take much, and we're always trying to maintain that balance.
Thanks.
Jody Cook with NTV, do you have a final question?
None from me, thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Elizabeth Witten with All Newfoundland Labrador, do you have a final question?
Yes, I do. It's a bit of a follow-up on Peter's question, but I'm curious, a lot of institutions are revising their protocols about how many people can be on the premises and reopening, like Memorial University recently announced it plans to get most of its staff back by the beginning of next month. So I'm curious where you stand on those institutions making these choices. I don't make decisions for these institutions. We provide public health advice. The institutions are quite aware of what the public health advice is, and I think they make their decisions based on how well they feel they can follow that advice and they can maintain the health and safety of their employees. So, I guess I'd have to defer that question really to Memorial and what they have felt that they'd be able to do. But, the advice is out there, so we do expect that places will have taken that into account when they're making their decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Dr. Fitzgerald, do you have any final comments today?
No, just thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week, I guess.
Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
Our smartphones. We use them to keep in touch, to play, and to work. Now, your smartphone can help you limit the spread of COVID-19. Someone can have COVID-19 and not know it. They can spread the disease before they have any symptoms. The Government of Canada has developed an app that will let you know if you may have been in contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. The COVID Alert app creates a random code so that no one will know your name or your location. The app uses Bluetooth to exchange random codes with nearby phones. The code is a randomly generated string of digits and letters that changes every 5 minutes, so it cannot be used to identify you. The app does not have access to your name or address, or your phone's contacts, your location, or your health information. If someone you've encountered later tests positive for COVID-19 and uploads to the app a one-time key they received from their healthcare authority, you'll be notified that you may have been exposed. If you test positive for COVID-19, you can upload your one-time key from your healthcare authority. The app will then notify the people you've encountered without revealing your identity. You can then take steps to limit the spread of the disease. If you know you've been exposed, you should contact your local public health authority and follow their instructions. Using the app is one more thing we can all do to help limit the spread of COVID-19, in addition to washing our hands, keeping 2 meters apart, and wearing a non-medical mask or face covering when it's difficult to maintain physical distancing. You can do your part by downloading the app today and helping others use it too. The more people who use the app, the better we can contain COVID-19. Help protect yourself and your community. Download the COVID Alert app to help limit the spread of COVID-19. Go to the App Store or Google Play. Find out more at canada.ca/coronavirus.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Francisco Ajeda, Ray Smallwood, Ron Burke, and Kim Walsh, all birthdays within the next 2 weeks. Anniversaries, we have Jill and Jim Osmond, 16. Margie and Jeff Collingwood, married 32 years. Catherine and Kevin Breen, 52 years. Well done. Jennifer and Paul Dix, 21. Partners' birthdays, we have Anita Carroll, partner of Basem, and Sylvia Wall, Phil's wife. So welcome to the annual Firefighter of the Year Award Luncheon. It's our honor to host this, and I would now like to turn this credible luncheon over to Glenn Barnes and Bob Andrews, who will come forward, and we can get on with the presentation of awards. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to the 2020 Firefighter of the Year Awards. It's great to see such a large group out today. We have a number of guests here, and I'll introduce each one of you. You don't have to stand this year. We're trying to respect COVID, of course. We have Deputy Mayor Sheila O'Leary representing Mayor Danny Breen of St. John's. Welcome, Sheila. Councillor Isabel Fry representing Mayor Dave Acker of Mount Pearl. Welcome. And Councillor Sterling Willis representing Mayor Dan Bobbitt of Paradise. Welcome, nice to see you. And from the fire department, of course, as you can well imagine, we have lots of people here. First, Fire Chief Sherry Colford, Deputy Chief Roger Hounsell, the President of the IAAF Local 1075, Firefighter Craig Smith, Platoon Chief Dean Foley, who was a nominator of this year's winners. And we have the families, of course, of this year's winners. The family of Firefighter Captain Barry Burke, Fire Captain Gina Burke, daughter Sophie Burke. Family of Firefighter Sean McCarthy and his spouse Firdoz Kubutan, and children Paige McCarthy and Logan McCarthy. The family of Firefighter Patrick Morgan, spouse Sarah, and children Luke and Emily Morgan, and also mother-in-law Mary Lou Stockless. And we have the family of Firefighter Corey Reed, spouse Rosemary Reed, and children Carly, Sophie, and Maddie Reed. Please join me in welcoming all of our guests.
Thank you, Glenn. I get to introduce the award, give a comment on its origins. We started on this in 2013, and it was an idea. Glenn and I were on the executive at the time, and it was an idea that percolated from one of those things you get from Rotary International that you don't bother to read normally. Well, that's where it was when we looked at it. I did a little bit of research, and I found out that Rotary and fire departments are associated or connected in many, many communities throughout North America, and including a number in Canada. I hadn't heard of that previously, but anyway, based on that, we discussed it. Glenn has a fair contact with the fire department, a fair knowledge of it. So we approached the chief and the union at that time, and we received nothing but absolute support. So we set about doing the first request for nominations. The criteria were had to be someone within the department, normally go through your fire captain or your superior, through to the chief's office. The chief's office played a role of fact-checking, or agreed to fact-check for us, because we want to make sure everything here is valid. And you know, sometimes we can tend to embellish as Newfoundlanders when we tell stories. But anyway, we want to make sure all this was absolutely accurate. We could be comfortable with it. And it's for acts of character, commitment, and compassion to the profession and to the community. We put out a call for applications in June. We closed that in September. It's assessed by a panel of Rotary. And at that point in time, we recommend it to the board approves it, and all of a sudden, here we are today. This award, even though we started on it in 2013, this award was first awarded in 2015. So welcome to the 6th annual presentation of the Rotary Firefighter of the Year 2020. On behalf of our committee, I would like to thank all who participated. We received an excellent group of nominations this year, and you certainly could have awarded more than one, shall we say, of the quality within the department, but we had to narrow it down to one. It makes it a really pleasant task when you read all these very, very heartwarming stories. We thank the chief for the full participation from her office. It wouldn't work without that funnel to come through to us, to from the department. And we truly appreciate the support we received there. I think we're getting it down pretty good to a system now. And I must say, we feel we work very well with the department. We appreciate that accommodation. At this point, I'd like to call upon the chief to make a few comments. We can all hide the corner.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Glenn. And good afternoon, Rotarians, our delegates from our region, which is St. John's, Mount Pearl, and Paradise, our chief officers, President Smith, the families of our firefighters, and last but not least, our recipients for Firefighter of the Year for 2020. I would like to thank the Rotary St. John's for once again recognizing and allowing a way for our firefighters to honor their own. 2020 has certainly been challenging for everyone, and it's been in many different ways. And with everything virtual these days, I would like to thank Rotary St. John's for giving so much importance to this event today that it had to be in person. And I deeply appreciate that, because I know it's a challenge to try and do that. So thank you very much. At times, we all take for granted the time and effort that goes into the hundreds of hours of training that these firefighters put in. And it's because they chose a profession of dedication to helping others. No doubt, when incidents happen, they replay it over and over in their mind and wonder if there's anything they could have done differently. And it's moments like this event, such as Firefighter of the Year, that help remind them that they gave their all. And as a community, we are grateful. Well, I will leave it to Glenn to talk about why these firefighters should be recognized. I would like to say that the recipients this year do not surprise me. The 4 firefighters that you will see honored today signify what our department stands for: our values, beliefs, and how we wish to be seen by the people in the community. I have the privilege of knowing them individually, and some I've known personally for many years. And they are what people think of when they think of a firefighter. They demonstrate honesty, trust, respect, and commitment. They bring all of that into our department, and they are the most dedicated firefighters that we have. And I'm not saying this because they're in the room. I have said it many times in other environments, and I am proud to have these 4 in our department. The story you will hear today about the recipients are only some of what they have done for this department, and their families should be just as proud of them as what we are. Now, I will warn you, they will be humble, a little embarrassed, and some will even seem uncomfortable when they get this award. And it's all because to them, this is what they do. This is who they are. They don't do this work for the recognition or an award. They do it because it's their passion, and they couldn't think of doing anything else in their life. And that's commendable. And for that, it makes it even more special to see them recognized today for that dedication. So thank you once again to Rotary St. John's for this event. And congratulations to the recipients of the Firefighter of the Year for 2020. You all deserve it. Thank you.
I'd ask for President Jim to put down his coffee and come up because we need his services now. On behalf of the Rotary Club of St. John's, it's my pleasure to announce that the winners of the 2020 Rotary Firefighter of the Year award are, and I'd ask them to come up as their names are called, the Central Engine Crew B Platoon, Fire Captain Barry Burke, Firefighter Sean McCarthy, Firefighter Patrick Morgan, and Firefighter Corey Reed. Okay, Glenn is going to give you a description of what led to this award first. So maybe if we could just move a little further over. Don't worry about the light shine. Where are you? Oh, you got to, sorry. We got to open that up because there's slides. Yeah. There we go. There you go. Perfect. We're going to go a bunch of firefighters.
Okay. So we have some quite dramatic photographs which show the location and also some pictures of the location 2 weeks ago, as well as the night of this event. It was January 17th, 2020. The city was in the midst of Snowmageddon, one of the worst snowfalls in recorded history. The city and the province were pretty much shut down, as we all remember. City crews and contractors worked around the clock to free snow-choked streets, and essential workers made their way to their workplaces. A snow and windstorm was raging on that night. At 16:47, a call came into the 911 center. There had been an avalanche in the area of the outer battery. B Platoon, a central fire station consisting of Captain Barry Burke and firefighters Patrick Morgan, Corey Reed, and Sean McCarthy responded. This wasn't a fire call, it was a potential rescue and medical call. One of the members of B Platoon's wife is also a captain in the department, and she was on shift at Mount Pearl Station that night. She no doubt heard the chatter on the radio and knew what danger her husband was likely heading towards. Today, the Rotary Club of St. John's is honoring the members of B Platoon at Central Fire Station for responding effectively to what was a very uncertain situation. B Platoon managed to steer the pumper truck from Central to the foot of Signal Hill Road, but that was as far as the truck could go. The storm was blinding, winds howled, and snow was chest deep in places. It was likely about a kilometre from the foot of Signal Hill Road to the outer battery down steep laneways. Now, I'm told the department consults avalanche experts when they have avalanche situations in this city. B Platoon was told that usually when there is one avalanche, there is a second that follows. So I can only imagine what was going through the minds of B Platoon, of the department's management, of their colleagues, and the captain on duty in Mount Pearl Station. The last avalanche in the battery in 1959 claimed 5 lives. So, you know, firefighting is a job, but it's also a profession and it's a calling. B Platoon responded. The bunker gear that firefighters wear is heavy and bulky. That night, B Platoon had to carry medical bags, a defibrillator, lights, and shovels on their backs and in their hands as they left the pumper at the bottom of Signal Hill Road and headed on foot on the long trek to the outer battery, all the way to the end of the lane near Chain Rock. The snow was chest-high in places. Fierce winds blew off the harbour. Now, we all know what it's like to trudge down our driveways in deep snow. Well, B Platoon trudged for 40 minutes or so for about a kilometre, carrying all that equipment in a snowstorm. When they arrived at the scene, they had to shovel their way up a very high flight of stairs to reach the dwelling, which was perched high above on the cliffs. They weren't really sure what to expect. In the back of their minds was the thought, is there going to be a second avalanche? But on they went regardless. One of the occupants of the home was working on a puzzle, sitting in her living room. With no warning, no noise, the back burst out of her house and snow crashed in all the way across to the front wall. Unfortunately, all the occupants of that house were unharmed, and there was no second avalanche. Once the occupants were safe and removed, the members of B Platoon quickly went door to door in the area to advise neighbors of what had happened and to urge them to leave, just in case there was a second avalanche. The job still wasn't over, though. Everyone, neighbors, firefighters, had to make the trek all the way back to the bottom of Signal Hill Road, back another kilometre up over narrow laneways, facing the snow and the winds off the harbour. Chief Colford told me that there were any number of things that could have gone wrong that night, and even if a third of them went wrong, B Platoon, the department, and the residents would have had a major situation on their hands. But due to the skill and dedication of the members of B Platoon, and some good luck, nothing went wrong. Because you see, being a firefighter is a job, it's a profession, and it's a calling. Firefighters, first responders, and essential workers all do what's necessary to get the job done. In this situation, the members of B Platoon at Central Fire Station exhibited really what Rotarians call service above self. And they are indeed heroes. So please join me once again in congratulating our winners.
On behalf of St. John's Rotary Club, this is the professional trophy which we'll retain, but we'd like you guys to come over, we get a photo up with this.
Get in there, Jim. All right.
Everybody smiling?
See crow's
Makes it easier.
Awesome.
Yes. there's a plaque over here. They've carried that all day.
Oh, dear.
Right here.
Yep.
And this is a plaque which depicts the award, which I hope you'll find a good place and station to hang for perpetuity. Congratulations, everybody. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And now I'd like to call on Captain Barry Burke to make a few comments on behalf of the recipients.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are extremely honored to be receiving this prestigious Firefighters of the Year award. Thank you to Platoon Chief Foley for the nomination, and thank you Rotary Club members for choosing B Platoon Engine Crew, Corey Reed, Sean McCarthy, Patrick Morgan, and myself, Barry Burke, as recipients. I'm sure there were a number of other individuals equally deserving of this award. On Friday, January 17th, 2020, a winter storm is forecast that will leave nearly 80 centimeters of snow on the ground. Most of this snow would fall before the end of our shift at 8 o'clock the following morning. The snow, combined with heavy winds, made for a very challenging 24-hour shift. Throughout the day, St. John's Regional Fire Department personnel would respond to many incidents. There were routine calls and some more serious medical and fire calls. Responding to medical calls was very difficult, or emergency calls. The added stress brought on by the weather only increased the demands on fire crews as they performed their tasks. Vehicle operators were faced with the challenge of driving in blizzard conditions with zero visibility, and firefighters had to trudge through deep snow once they stepped off their vehicles. All on-duty personnel did an exemplary job as they responded to many calls throughout the shift. Fire crews met every challenge they faced that day. The professionalism of St. John's Regional Fire Department dispatchers, Platoon Chief Foley, R&C personnel, healthcare paramedics, and municipal snowplow operators played a key role in the successful outcome of all incidents during the storm. Everyone that reported for work that day should be proud of what they accomplished. That afternoon, while returning from another incident, our engine and 2 other units were dispatched to a possible avalanche at the battery. Unfortunately, many roads were now impassable, and the other 2 vehicles became stuck in snow and were unable to make it to the scene. The deteriorating weather conditions were making a bad situation worse. Our response was very slow and treacherous. Corey Reed, the engine operator, did a great job navigating carefully through blizzard conditions as we arrived at Battery Road. From here, Sean McCarthy, Patrick Morgan, and myself, carrying as much equipment as we could, traveled on foot to the scene. We slowly made our way through the deep snow. After what seemed like an eternity, we finally arrived at the location of the avalanche. We were greatly relieved to find there were no injuries at this scene. In fact, the occupants were already starting to shovel the snow out of their living room. The home received some damage, and the avalanche had filled the main floor with snow. We did what we could to minimize the damage caused by the avalanche. We even managed to rescue a few chickens. With great effort, we traveled from one house to another to check on other residents of the battery. Everyone we contacted maintained a positive attitude despite the current situation brought on by the effects of the extreme weather. The firefighters I worked with that day did a great job, and I was very proud of their outstanding efforts and uncompromising work ethic. We did our job. That's the nature of this business. As career firefighters, we train so that we are ready to face almost any situation. At the end of the day, we did what we were supposed to. Having said that, it still feels nice to be recognized by your community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone. I would point out firefighter Sean McCarthy. It's his second time winning this award. They're going to start ganging up on him at Fire Hall or something. I'm sure they have their own way of dealing with that. Anyway, let's say congratulations. And I just wanted to say, you mentioned the chickens. The chickens showed up. You can still find that video online the day after, as the fellow tries to call the chickens, Chris Brooks. I know that because I looked for video of this. And I tried really hard, and I ended up calling the media and to say, look guys, what'd you have in your evening news? Can I get a copy of your video? And their answer was, it was too stormy to make it there. We couldn't even get to Signal Hill. So that sort of underscored to me what you guys went through. Because the media, I thought, stick their nose in everywhere, no offense meant. That's your job, Mike. You know? But, it was just interesting as we started trying to put this stuff together. And the more you asked, like we had volunteers from the battery prepared to come down here to give their own testimonial to what you did. So the effects have lasted. And as they say, it's what you do. Now I'm going to call on Jim to look after the closing.
Thank you very, very much. As Glenn just quickly alluded to, the motto for Rotary is service above self, and you just heard that story, and it epitomizes what really service above self really means. So congratulations to the winners again. Would like to thank Bob Andrews and Glenn Barnes for your hard work and dedication as you started this 2013. And we really, really appreciate the effort that you put in. It's important to our club, it's important to the community, and it's obviously quite important to the rank and file of the St. John's Regional Fire Department. So thank you both very, very much for what you do. So in closing, just want to remind everybody that the next luncheon is October 23rd. The speaker will be announced the next week or so. I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your weekend. Please be safe. Also, those who are online on Zoom for this meeting, I want to say hello. And I would ask now for everybody to stand and with your inside voice for the Ode to Newfoundland.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Hey everyone, it is Jason Piercy, host of Out of the Fog on Tuesday nights at 7:30. You're definitely going to want to watch because you never know what I'm going to get into. It's all about community. It's all about you. So watch Tuesday, 7:30.
was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.